Live from the 607, it is the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking sports, locally and nationally. Why don't you join in the conversation with the hashtag OUPH? Here we go.
Instead of making promises in the dark, why don't we just play our part? 'Cause I'm all alone in your...
And welcome to another edition of the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. I'm your host, Ken. Sitting across from me this week is the intern himself, Padawan J.
Hello.
Folks, we have a lot to talk about. It has been a busy week in sports, but no sports story is bigger than the NBA Finals and the Cleveland Cavaliers getting back to the finals. I know Pat is not a fan of this, to say the least. Bring this down a little bit, but you have to give credit where credit is due. You saw us conquer Boston. They battered both in Game 7. But I guess it's kind of
He won. I give him all the credit he's due. He is a phenomenal player, but I would not care less about this NBA Finals.
Well, with the finals being in there,
all the boys, let's celebrate.
I don't want to say
Got a few more hours
but it's not one
day like this.
A lot of changes. I mean, we talked about it.
No surprise that I'm my eyes open this time. Won't live another day.
Yeah, and just to see where they ended up.
I'm lost in your sea and I'm wasted in my memories. Whoa.
I think it's more luck than impressive. Right?
You can call it whatever you need to call it.
Another sidetrack mind. Just another hope that no one sees. But tonight we're gonna let it all go.
I don't want to say
It was a young team that, for what it's worth, couldn't hit a shot if they were standing on a pier shooting into the ocean. They could, they couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. I was watching this game. I believe it was Terry Rozier at one point was like 0 for 9 from 3. I mean, at some point, if you're the coach, you're going to go stop passing him the ball.
Yeah, I mean, it just came down to a clutch point because Boston was hanging in there. What really kind of boggled my mind is early in the dominating. Why do you stop? That was success.
You would think.
They should have won. I mean, you're not saying, because they were home in the bowl. No, I'm not I'm just saying, why. Let's not even bring up the whole parity of play.
They were 10-0 at home without it.
Yeah, so that argument is going for you, right? But if you're looking at the team as it stands, Tatum was leading the charge. Rozier had an off night.
Yeah.
And everybody else was kind of hit and miss. But they kind of went, I don't want to say they went into Cleveland's trap, but Cleveland did not panic, and Cleveland really showed that they were the veteran team.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, Cleveland stepped up. Cleveland showed their experience having players who have been there and LeBron who's been there. And obviously, I believe there was only one player on the Boston Celtics who had any sort of championship experience. I'm blanking on the gentleman's name, but he was with the San Antonio Spurs when they won it a couple years ago. I'm blanking on his name. So there was obviously some lack of experience there, but to that point, it really didn't matter that they had a lack of experience. They were 10-0 at home.
No, they were 10-0 at home, and there's no question about that. But at the same token, they're in the NBA Finals and against a veteran team, and especially one that has had success winning championships. That plays a factor. So no matter how you want to break it down, Boston had a very uphill climb, but they hung in there, and just obviously going into how they came out of the halftime, that when Cleveland is putting up points And LeBron just kind of made his presence felt. And this is one of those games that you have to look at as legacy. And I know the comparisons are to Jordan all the time and such. But I just say with this, he is probably the most important and valuable player in this current era of the NBA. And I don't think you can question that. And I think this game was one that really showcased that because he doesn't have the most talented squad around him. They're very streaky at best. But he found a way to beat a way better team in this Game 7 away from the Quicken Loans Arena.
I think when it comes to the whole comparison thing, I believe one Kobe Bryant put it best on Twitter today. You can find him at Kobe Bryant. Quote, "We can enjoy one without tearing down one. I love what he is doing. Don't debate what can't be definitively won by anyone. Hashtag enjoy my 5. Hashtag enjoy MJ6. Hashtag enjoy LBJ Quest."
And that's perfectly stated. And you know what? I completely agree with that because you have to look at the different eras when everybody played.
Right.
And it's a totally different ballgame. But for what it is right now and what LeBron has done with his Cavaliers team, I mean, they have not really been a super team.
No.
Not like when he went to Miami.
They've had some role players that, like, okay, you recognize the name, but it's not like putting 3 superstars together a la, him, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, or if you want to look at Boston back in, the late 2000s, where it was Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Ray Allen.
Yeah. When you don't have a super team and yet you're wielding your team to get farther, I mean, I'm not saying they're overachieving, but you kind of have to say they are.
They are, because there was a lot of people, myself included, that when they traded like half their roster in the span of 30 minutes going, what are they doing and who are these players?
Yeah, and this has taken a lot out of LeBron. I know a lot is being looked at him and going, oh, he's so tired. To realize the preparation he has to do and how much weight he's carrying with this team.
I've been saying he's tired for a number of years, and that's not just because of his age, how long he's been in the league. It's more, look at the tread on that tires. And I know I've said it on the show before. He's been to, what is this now, his 8th consecutive NBA Finals? Mm-hmm. It's his 8th consecutive NBA Finals. So this is his 8th consecutive year playing from, when do they start? October?
Yep.
From October through June. And then, of course, there were some years in there where he was playing at least until August with the Olympics. That's a lot of tread in those tires. I don't care who you are.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's showing it's catching up to him. But at least in this game, other role players stepped up.
Oh, yeah. Like, I know myself, when it got announced Kevin Love wasn't going to play, I'm like, that's going to make things a little interesting.
Absolutely. But Jeff Green showed up. I mean, 19 points from him. Tristan Thompson had a great game. And when your role players step up, that helps. J.R. Smith finally showed up.
Yeah, he finally found his way to the arena.
Yeah, which, I mean, he is one of the most streakiest players in the league. Either he's lights out or he is not even in the building.
Oh, yeah.
And he showed up when he needed to, so I got to give him credit for that. But when you take a look at, like, with Boston, and especially the young guns there, I mean, you got to give them a credit, and this is definitely going to be a learning experience for them.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah.
Because this team, without any superstars, really, I don't consider Hartford a superstar. He's a great player, and he is an all-star, but a superstar?
Close, but no.
Debatable, but in my opinion, no. But Jason Tatum is a future superstar.
Oh, without a doubt.
And the fact that I know what's getting most emphasized about this game when you watch the highlights is LeBron's quote-unquote block on Rozier, which was not a block. That was a foul. I'll be the first one to tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
And Tatum's dunk on LeBron. And then, but what happened is, and this showed the era of youth. The minute they got done dunking, Tatum kind of did a little taunt. Morris came over and did a taunt. Why would you want to tick off arguably the best player in the league? And this is his element. This is going to make him drive even harder.
You wouldn't, but I give him a lot of credit for doing so because it showed, I don't care who you are, I'm not afraid of you. You're LeBron James. Yeah, you're one of the best players of our generation, arguably one of the best of all time. I don't care who you are. I'm not scared.
No, it's one of those things you can debate too, but I think in that situation, I know that's where, like I say, youth emotion showed up.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe it was not the best idea. No, granted, I understand your point. What you're saying too is like you want to say, hey, I'm not afraid of you. I don't care who you are. And that's a great mentality to have. But if you're going to get somebody that's a veteran on the status of LeBron and do that too, you had better make sure you close out.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you don't, this is where you're going to get exposed. And I think that this kind of gave the Cavs the extra spark. Because once they got done with that scenario place, this is when all of a sudden LeBron is passing all the way across court to George Hill, who makes a running, sliding, reverse layup to get them up by 7 late in the fourth. When this is happening, this is when you see the veteran team take over and the one that's been the championship team because they know how to close. This is going to be a learning experience for Boston, so Celtics fans have nothing to feel bad about.
No.
And especially next season, if you're got to consider Hayward's going to come back healthy.
Yep.
Kyrie is going to come back healthy, barring any moves, because I know it's still lingering the Kawhi for Kyrie talk, or I know that there was a lot of chatter on the internet about, they're going to have to revamp this team and make some moves. Not really.
No, not necessarily.
I wouldn't say so.
No.
I mean, I think they would be smart to keep the nucleus that they have.
Yeah.
And then if you're going to move maybe a player or two, okay, but I don't think you need to blow up the team by any means.
I'll say if I could give this a comparison, this is kind of like the New York Yankees last year. Yeah, they had a good team. Were they supposed to make it that far? No. But they got awfully darn close.
No, Boston's expectation was to make it. And the fact they got this far...
Well, I'm talking about once Kyrie went down and once they lost Kyrie, once they lost Hayward, everyone was like, nope, they're done.
Well, it was definitely a question in the room. But I think that Boston showed what they had, and they have a lot of youth, and they have a lot of players that are willing to buy into Brad Stevens' system. The future is very bright there.
Oh, yeah, I think Brad Stevens definitely, I'll be honest, I kind of forgot he was coaching there, simply because it's been a couple of years since Boston has really made a run in the playoffs like this. But it kind of reminded me of some of those years he had in college where he'd make a run in the tournament and how good he actually was.
Yeah, he's very underrated, I think, coming in, because everybody said, Butler was a fluke. I don't think Butler was a fluke by any means. And to see how he's worked the NBA system, it's a tough transition from college to pros. It doesn't happen all the time.
Listen, I think he's made it faster than a lot of college coaches have made going up there.
But he has the right people around him because he has a lot of younger talent. I think if the roles were reversed and he was on Cleveland's team, I think he would struggle because that team is very, very veteran.
I think he also has a general manager in Danny Ainge who will do what has to be done to get the right parts, but I think he also goes to Brad Stevens and goes, hey, what do you need?
Yeah. And now Cleveland waits for whoever's going to come out of the West. But for Cleveland, they have some days to rest and to game plan. Now, who is it going to be? We're going to talk about that when we come back from break. You're listening to the ODPH.
Hey, this is Brian Wolf from Fair City Fire. You are listening to ODPH, the greatest podcast in Binghamton.
Woo!
Hot lips touching, cool thighs feeling, shudder running up, her spine spinning, long day to a long night, but I'm not stopping till I get it right.
Coming back for segment number 2 on this week's ODPH. Now we talked about Cleveland beating Boston 87-79 to punch their ticket to the NBA Finals, but the Game 6 in Golden State was a little more lopsided.
My Lord.
115-86, Golden State stayed alive. The series is now tied up. Now, albeit Houston did this without Chris Paul.
Yep.
So now going into Game 7, what is the expectations for tonight?
Don't turn the ball over 21 times.
Absolutely.
That was the thing that stuck out to me because that of the series between Boston and Cleveland, Golden State and Houston, before everything else, that was the one I was more interested in, simply because it's Golden State and everything they've got coming into it, which everybody already knows, and then you've got Houston. Can they step up against Golden State? Can they beat him? Chris Paul's first trip to the conference finals. So that one was already the one I was most interested in. But then Golden State just came out of the box in the second half, just firing on every cylinder they had and then some.
It was almost like deja vu for me because when Golden State came out in that second half, and they were down, I think at one point it was 20 in the first half.
It was like I think it was like 17.
It was a high number. Houston let them off the hook because Golden State came out and really committed to lockdown defense in the second half. And the turnovers, how many were there again?
21
turnovers. You do that, you're not going to win the game. And they had an abysmal.
Say there was a player for Houston, I'm blanking on who it was, but they asked him about the turnovers. He goes, listen, if we played against my daughter's team with that many turnovers, we'd lose.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was purely abysmal, if I can use that word. The turnovers were costing, and just the effort was when you get outscored in the third quarter 33-16 and in the fourth 31-9.
I'll say, what was it? They only scored like 24 points in the entire second half, they being Houston.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to win, and especially they were making bad turnovers too.
Yeah.
And you can't do that to Golden State.
No.
You can't. I mean, you can't do that to any team, but let alone one that has 4 All-Stars on it.
And a lot of sharpshooters.
Yeah, and Klay Thompson was ready for this. He is Mr. Game 6.
I'll say you've got Golden State as a team that if you turn the ball over, they're not exactly a run down the court and lay it in or dunk it in or Euro step it in. No, they're a pull up from 3 dagger.
Yeah, and once they do that, it's over. And Houston didn't really have any defense for it.
No, I mean, you look at the box score, Kevin Durant, 23 points, Stephen Curry, 29, 35 from Klay Thompson. I mean, that says it all.
Yeah, and on the Houston end, Harden had 32, Gordon had 19, Ariza had 14, but most of that was the first half.
Right.
When you go ice cold in the second, and especially, I knew it was going to be a tough battle for Houston on the road, especially with no Chris Paul.
Right.
And you have to factor that in. But at the same token, if you're up by 20 in the first, how do you let them off the hook and let them get back in?
I'll say, if I'm the head coach of Houston, I employ the Bill Belichick New England Patriots method. Don't let off the gas. Don't assume you have this in the bag. Go for broke.
Which, I mean, D'Antoni's system, he's not known for his defense. And, I mean, his system works if you can outshoot the other team. It's very tough to outshoot Golden State 4 games out of 7.
No, this is true.
Let's be very honest about this, because all it takes is them to get hot, and somebody has to. It doesn't have to be Curry. It doesn't have to be Durant. It has to be somebody. Klay Thompson is a great B option, I guess. I mean, I don't even want to say a B option because that whole squad is just loaded no matter where you go.
Oh, yeah.
So now you've let Golden State get back in this. You're going back to Houston. Chris Paul, as we are recording, is a game-time decision.
Andre Iguodala is out.
But, all right, so Andre Iguodala is still out. So Houston, if they can get Chris Paul back in this, Pat, how do you see this one playing out?
If Chris Paul gets back in this game, I think it's going to be very limited minutes, given that it's the playoffs. It doesn't matter what sport you're in. If you're even close enough to go, you're going to go. It must have been bad enough that they really didn't want him to go at all. So I think if he plays, it's going to be very limited minutes, and I just don't see Houston pulling this off. The way Golden State was playing and as hot as they were looking, they seem to be really finding their stride that second half.
It's going to be something to see because I don't know if Houston can do this. I think they have a shot. Like on paper, they are definitely capable of beating Golden State, but to get beat that bad, and you're going in with a not 100% Chris Paul. Granted, you're on your home court, and that does play a factor.
Yeah, that helps.
That is going to play a factor. But unless you have come up with an answer to shut down the big 3 of Golden State, meaning Durant, Curry, and Thompson, which is nothing against Draymond Green, but he's known more for his defense than taking over games. If they can slow those guys down, and they need another solid outing from Gordon and Ariza, but they need it in the second half. If you go 22 turnovers and only score 24-25 in the entire second half, you're done. And you need to have more of a consistent answer. Now, D'Antoni is a heck of a coach. He has a very unique offensive style and mentality that his team has definitely embraced. But are you going to win in a shootout?
With them, no.
I mean, any other team, I would say it's possible. I'm still going to stick to my guns and say I think Houston could do this, but obviously with Chris Paul being there, I don't see how they can do this.
No, I think for them to do this, you would need a 110% Chris Paul playing out of his mind and having the absolute game of his career. And I'm talking like a game that like he gets inducted into the Hall of Fame. That's the first highlight they're showing. You know, it's his, you know, it's MJ's pick whatever game you want, the flu game, the whatever game, you know. That's the first highlight they show. You would need something similar from James Harden. You'd basically need that entire starting 5 to have career games.
And that's what it's going to need to be because it's Game 7, and I mean, this is Harden's moment. This is Chris Paul's moment. This is the team that has never had this opportunity because it's usually been a dominant Golden State.
This is a moment for Houston that if they are to win, when they retire, and, you know, 15, 20 years after they retire, that, you know, fans of the NBA look back and talk about them and talk about their favorite players when they were growing up, this will be the first thing they talk about. Hey, remember that time they got blown out by Golden State in the playoffs by like 30 or 40, and then they came back and they won?
They have to have that mentality that this is game. I mean, obviously they're going to go and knowing this is game 7. But for those guys in their legacy, they need this game.
Yeah.
They need this a lot more than Durant and Curry and company over in Golden State. Because for them, this has been their year. This has been, we got home court throughout the playoffs. Oh, this is the year that we beat Golden State during the regular season.
Yeah, yeah.
And everybody jumped on that train.
Oh, Harden's finally got some help. He'll win it all.
Yeah. This is the game they need to cash in on.
Mm-hmm.
They need to somehow slow down everybody in the second half because the one thing Steve Kerr and company are getting him on, and Kerr's done a heck of a job making adjustments in the second half.
Oh, without a doubt.
He makes those adjustments, and there's no counterpunch from Houston. They need that counterpunch. They need to figure out a way, okay, Curry's getting hot. How do we slow him down? And somebody needs to play consistent, solid defense on him, Thompson, and Durant. I'm not saying lockdown, that you're going to shut him out. You're not. But you need to make sure every shot is contested. Every play is physical. You need to not give them time to set up.
No.
Can they do this?
It's a tall order.
It's a very tall order. They should be able to do this. I don't think they will, though.
No.
I think it's going to be a closer game. I know the point spread, as I was seeing, was 5.5.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be around there. I really do, because I think Golden State is going to come in there, and I think they're going to have a slow first half to start because I think that arena is going to be so filled with emotion.
Oh, yeah.
And if it's anything like the previous game, you're going to feel it immediately in the first quarter. But for Houston, you can't go drop 40 points in the first quarter and then disappear after that. You can't. Because when you're up that big, you need to close. If they don't, we now have Golden State versus Cleveland for the
fourth year in a row.
Fourth year in a row. I'd rather not see that.
No.
But if it's going to be, it's going to be, and we can talk about that on next week's episode. But for Houston, this is your moment. Are you going to capture it, or are you going to let it slip, as the song says?
I think you'll be able to tell how Golden State will come out of the gate based off of how they are before they come out on the court. Because if you think back to last game, there was the video from in the tunnel or wherever the heck it was where Curry was dancing with the ushers. He's very loose. He's like, all right, he's ready to go. I think if they're coming out like, you don't see any video of him dancing around or having fun, like he's super focused in and super serious, watch out.
It should be, because they're the veterans. They're the defending champions. They know what they need to do to win.
Mm-hmm.
Can Houston find a way to win? We're going to have to watch and find out. But hit us up on that hashtag ODPH. We want to know what you think. Who you got tonight? Houston, Golden State, and then in the finals, we want to know Cleveland or the West. Let us know. You're listening to the ODPH. Hey, this is Ken from the ODPH, reminding you to check out OchoDuroParlayHour.com. On our website, you'll find links to our social media accounts on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, past episodes, the blogs, and links to the bands that give us the music you hear each and every week on the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. So check it out, and as always, thank you for listening to the ODPH. Coming back for the third segment on this week's ODPH, and we got to talk a little Stanley Cup action.
Oh, baby.
Now, we have been talking in the round of the bases segment at the end of the show, because, I mean, the beloved New York Rangers are not in the finals.
Sadly.
Next year, though. Next year. But
okay.
This year's playoffs have definitely been entertaining. They have a Cinderella story in the Vegas Golden Knights.
I'd say so.
And then, obviously, Game 7, Washington versus Tampa Bay. Washington came to play.
Ooh,
and
boy.
You knew from the get-go, Ovechkin and company showed up and played hard-nosed hockey. Tampa was matching them, and there was definitely not the score, albeit though, was 3-0 for the final. It definitely wasn't as lopsided.
No.
It was a full effort on both teams, but Braden Holtby played out of his mind. Back-to-back shutouts.
All I'm saying is, I'm not saying Braden Holtby's Doctor Strange from the Marvel movies, but I'm also saying you haven't seen them both in the same room together.
I'm saying that they played absolutely incredible, but Holtby just went all in.
He went bananas.
to make sure that they got there. And Ovechkin, you knew, like we said before, this is his legacy game.
We'll say Ovechkin came in ready to play Smash Mouth, put somebody through the plexiglass hockey.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that he's now finally there.
Yeah.
So now as we go into game 1, it's going to be something to watch because Vegas has been sitting there patiently waiting. And, I mean, technically, like I say, no pun intended, they're playing with house money. Whatever happens from here on out, they can kind of skate through and say, hey, we got here when nobody expected us to. But they're in the dance. Can their offense or their front line take on Holtby and actually make some damage? I mean, it's possible. Carlson and Smith are going to be leading the charge in there. And I think they're going to have a couple games where they do get some wins. I think it's not going to be a sweep by any means.
No, there's going to be definitely a couple wins from Vegas. I don't see this going, a full sweep from Washington. Vegas just is overpowered or what have you. No, Vegas is going to give them a fight.
Yeah, and I mean, they're going to have a fight, but Kuznetsov and Ovechkin are definitely going to show up and get ready to go. I mean, you're going to have two very aggressive teams. Washington isn't as polished as Vegas.
No.
So every time I see Vegas, they're very fundamentally sound. They don't make a lot of turnovers.
No.
They don't make a lot of mistakes, and they're very crisp on their passing. Washington is kind of, drop the elephant in the room and see what happens. Because they're going to come full speed at you. They take a lot of chances.
Yeah.
They're not going to go and play really sound hockey. They do like to take some chances, but their aggressive style helps them. In my opinion, it's going to help them get the cup. I'm going to make the claim now. I think Washington takes this in 6.
Interesting. I'm going to go with Vegas in 7. I think the slipper fits, as it were, on Cinderella's foot. It seems like a Hollywood movie. The storyline playing out with Vegas with it's their first year, and then you had, the tragedy happened back in October, what was it, like a week before their first game, and now they're coming out the gate, firing all cylinders, they're in the playoffs, they're into the conference finals, they're into the Stanley Cup final. This is playing like a movie.
It is. And if Vegas wins, I'm not saying this is not going to happen. I'm just thinking, okay, this is a lot to put on a team that really they have nothing to lose.
No.
But I think you have the veterans on Washington that this is their time. Like much what we say with Houston in the previous segment and with Cleveland. When you have a veteran team in there that is hungry and definitely wants to make it as far as they can. And now for Washington, they're finally there.
Oh, yeah.
This is the moment, like we say, with Ovechkin, it's going to be looked upon his career that he finally got there. What did he do?
We'll say this is like Peyton Manning finally getting into the Super Bowl against the Bears.
Yeah. No, this is his moment. So he needs to win the cup. For him, I think it'd be more devastating if he loses.
Oh, without a doubt.
To Vegas. I mean, and take nothing away from Vegas. Vegas is a great team.
Yeah.
And I know they pulled a lot of people's attention to hockey this year because obviously the Cinderella story of Vegas it's amazing. It's a movie. It writes itself.
Oh, yeah.
But now they're here, and I think for Washington, it's now the moment, okay, put up or shut up. They have had so many talented teams over the years. They should have been to a couple Stanley Cups.
Say they should have won a couple by now.
Probably. It's debatable, but they've always had trouble with the Rangers in the playoffs, and they've always had problems with the Penguins in the playoffs. They didn't have that issue this year. They've now beat Pittsburgh to get to this level.
Yep.
I mean, that'd be Tampa Bay, but they got over their rival, the one team that's been their kryptonite. And now they're here. Ovechkin is in the spotlight. He is probably going to have most attention on him.
Oh, yeah.
And he needs to step up in that spotlight. And it's going to be tough because Fleury knows him. I mean, all the years he's played in Pittsburgh, Marc-Andre Fleury definitely knows Ovechkin's style and how he shoots, and there's a little advantage there. But Ovechkin also knows him. So it's not like
Washington's familiar with him.
Yeah. Washington is more familiar with Fleury. So what is going to happen when that meets? I think the veteran team is going to take advantage of that.
I'll say, I think if I had to give an advantage to this matchup, I'd have to give it to Washington simply on the numbers alone. Sure, Fleury has faced Washington, but that's one guy trying to tell an entire team how to beat them. The opposite side is an entire team knowing how to beat one guy.
Yeah, and that's the thing. When a team can go and kind of have a game plan already built in.
They've already got footage on the guy from how they played him.
Yeah. I mean, Fleury is going to be definitely telling his guys, okay, I faced Washington before. This is kind of their tendencies. And I know they're going to come in prepared.
Sure.
There's no question of that. But I just think Washington is just a little deeper, and I think the veteran presence, I mean, not to say that Vegas doesn't have veterans, but a couple of these guys have played together for quite a while.
Oh, yeah.
They know how to kind of play and get in there. Are they going to get caught up in the moment? I don't think so. In my opinion, I don't think Washington is going to get caught up in the moment. I think they're going to come in there hungry and prepared, and I don't doubt them stealing game one. I don't think they win game one, but I don't doubt them getting game one.
I think Washington will get caught up in the moment so far as like the whole pageantry and introduction of the finals. You know, that you typically see, and not just with this, but any sport. You know, World Series, NBA Finals, you know, the Super Bowl. They'll be, oh, wow, we're finally here. But then, you know, once the anthems are sung, once the introductions are done, and the music's playing and the crowd's cheering and everybody's getting to center ice, puck drops, game face on, let's go.
Yeah, and that's what professionals do. I mean, that's the beauty of hockey. And that's why I've gone on here before and I've talked about hockey is the most intense sport of playoffs, no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, certain other series, when they go to Game 7, yeah, it's intense. And I'm not going to take anything away from that. But there's just something about hockey that if your team is involved or you're an invested fan, like that is your sport, there is nothing like it.
We'll say because it's not, and I know you and I were having this conversation the other day, it's not like it is in football where, oh, darn, you know, my linebacker missed his assignment and the other team's running back got a 13-yard gain. We can make it up the next play. Hockey, it's, oh, darn, my defensive lineman screwed up, and now you've got a winger coming up the side on a breakaway with nobody in front of him but the goalie.
No, it's one of the most fastest sports you can play.
I'm saying in the snap of a finger, the puck can be down on the other end of the ice.
Yeah, and you just have to be ready for that because that's usually what happens is one little mistake will shift momentum like you have no idea.
And so you talk to any hockey fan, if their team is in a Game 7 scenario, not even just for the Stanley Cup, but any point in the playoffs, it is the most stressful time of their life.
Yeah, it's a beauty of being a fan because when your team's in it, and just to see how the city of Vegas has embraced this, I just want to see their reactions. I love seeing the crowd shots from the different casino parties they're having just to celebrate it because now is like when you really can truly understand why hockey is what hockey is.
I'll say that'll be a great time to use. Snapchat's got that map feature where like you can go and see the big events going on in cities and whatnot. When the hockey games are going on, that's going to be when you go take a look at Vegas.
Yeah, and take nothing away from Washington, too, because they fill up their arena for Game 7.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a very, very loud, rocking arena.
Yeah, just a bit.
So now what's going to happen, like I said, my prediction, I like the Capitals in 6. I think Holtby is going to play solid enough. I think that they're a little deeper. I think that Ovechkin, this is his time. And it reminds me that, Pat, I think you nailed it right on the head. I think it's like when Manning first faced the Bears in his Super Bowl. He knew this was his moment. He knew he might not ever get back. How are you going to leave your legacy? This is your time. Because if he doesn't cash in the cup, he's going to hear about it until he somehow gets back. If he ever gets back. Because nothing is guaranteed in hockey.
No.
Nothing is ever guaranteed in life, period. But for your moment, you're here. This is your chance. You need to cash this in.
Yeah.
It's much like Houston. Because the NBA, they can do little off-season moves and try getting back. Hockey's a little tougher because hockey is such an emotional drain.
Yeah, and I was going to say something to that effect. It's not like in baseball where, you see a team win a World Series and you hear, oh, this is the last time this team will be together. And some players do leave and some come back. Football, basketball, it's the same thing. Hockey, it's no guarantee. Half that team could be gone by next year.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the one crazy thing about the sport, and especially you just have to have everything line up at the right time.
It's the ultimate, like the universe has to align.
Yeah, because if your goalie is rocking, your line is rocking, everything is clicking at the right time, you have a great shot to win. But take nothing away from Vegas. Vegas has had a lot of things work in their favor for their hockey. Fleury has played with a chip on his shoulder. And he wants to bring that cup back to Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of that team has been, I don't want to say castaways, but they're more or less free agents that teams did not protect.
It's definitely a band of misfits, if I will.
Yeah, and like I say, they're no pun intended, they're playing with house money.
Yeah.
They got this far. Nobody expected them to get this far. Nobody, except if you're a diehard Vegas fan.
Diehard Vegas fans weren't even thinking this. I know I was paying attention on Reddit. There were people who were real excited they were there, and I saw more than one screenshot of people back at the start of the season going, hey, Vegas fans, I know we're excited for the season, but it's going to be rough. It's our first year.
Yeah, lower the expectations, but now you're here. You could win this.
Yeah, you got a shot.
I mean, it's not to say that it's a lock that Washington is going to win. I'm just saying, as a hockey fan and as a Rangers fan, I have seen a lot of Ovechkin play over the years. He wants to win worse than anybody. And he's willing to, break every bone in his body, checking people and diving for the puck, and whatever he needs to do, he's willing to pay that price to win. That's a scary thing when you're a man without fear and you have nothing, you have everything to lose and your legacy to gain. That's where I think the edge is going to come in. But that is my pick. Pad, you said Vegas in 7?
Vegas in 7. I just think it's going to play out like the movie Cinderella's slipper's going to fit. It won't hit midnight, whatever analogy you want to use. I think the story's there. Vegas in 7.
It's going to be fun to watch. Make sure to go to NHL.com and find out where you can watch in your area. Do not miss the Stanley Cup playoffs because they're going to be something to watch and something to see. But let us know what your picks are. Hashtag ODPH. Hit us up on that social media. We want to know what you're thinking. We're going to take a quick break, close it out with the Local Minute when we come back.
It's a heartbreak, soul-shaped radio attack. Taking 4 steps forward, no steps back.
Hey, this is Vince the Common Man Ciatoy, local MMA fighter, telling you to keep on listening to the ODPH, the 607's up-and-coming newest podcast.
We knew right where we'd be, floating on the airwaves, you see. It's a heartbreak, soul-shaped radio attack. Taking 4 steps forward and no steps back. We knew right where we'd be.
Coming back for the final segment on this week's ODPH. And Pad, what you got for the Local Minute?
A little bit of Rumble Ponies news. As we look at the standings, they're sitting in third place with a record of 26-23, 5 games out. First place is the New Hampshire, and in second place is Trenton. So definitely still in there, definitely still fighting. Looking at the schedule, they will be home this weekend for a 4-game set against New Hampshire. Get down there and check it out. Always a good time. I know we were just there.
Absolutely. The panel went Friday and Saturday. So shout out to Kevin Molson. He was down there Friday night, and Pat and I were down there Saturday as well. See the Bowie Bay Sox fight the Rumble Ponies and
the Binghamton Speedies.
Yes, and the Binghamton Speedies, because they did their special promotion with Lupo Speedies for one night only until we found out they're going to be doing it again in August, I believe.
Yep.
Is they changed their name from the Binghamton Rumble Ponies to the Binghamton Speedies. It worked because back-to-back wins, 6-4 on Friday night, 3-1 on Saturday. Unfortunately, they did lose 7-0 on Sunday.
Yeah, the game Saturday, though, that we went to, that was crazy. What was it? It was tied at 1 until, I believe, the bottom of the 8th, and they had a go-ahead 2-run home run.
Absolutely. The Rumble Ponies have been putting up some quiet numbers because they're not flashy, but they're definitely hitting clutch when they need to.
I'll say, and they hit a franchise record over the weekend as well.
Break it down for us.
So, yeah, they posted on Facebook Saturday night that that night they hit a franchise record of most well-attended games in a 3-day stretch with 17,615 fans coming to the stadium in the last 3 days.
That is incredible, and I love hearing that, 607. So make sure you go out and you continue to support the Rumble Ponies.
Well, say, and I got to say this about the Saturday game. That Saturday game was packed.
Friday and Saturday, because I was there Friday too with Moles, they were mobbed. And I loved seeing it because you had fans into the game, and it really showed that you can get behind the team, and the team rallied around the fans. They gave them a lot to yell and scream about. Granted, it was hotter than blazes, but they still showed up.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know what? You got your money's worth and then some. Some memories were made. I know Excite Wrestling was down there doing some promotional work because they're going to be doing a pro wrestling card ahead of Saturday's game on June 2nd.
Yep.
More information on that at excitewrestling.com and bingrp.com. But it's nice to see that people showed up and really made a point to drive that attendance record home. Let's do it again. Let's see if we can break it.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a great time. Always get down there. Always support the team. You never know what you're going to see. Could be a barn burner. They could lose. It could be a walk-off. I've seen a walk-off or two in my time. There is nothing more exciting than seeing a walk-off in person.
And the back-to-back combo of McNeil and Alonso, that is a fearsome 1-2 punch right at the top of that lineup, too. So shout out to the Rumble Ponies. We definitely like to support you guys and definitely get down to the games this weekend. BingRP.com.
Yep.
So we're going to do our rounding the bases, but since it's just Pad and myself this week, Pad, we're going to do a little extended segment. So do you want to start it off?
Sure. My thing for rounding the bases is Ronald Torreyes of the New York Yankees tied a major league record for hitting hitting a homer in 4 straight games, tying a record set with Miguel Cabrera when he did it with the Miami Marlins, and then Giancarlo Stanton, who also did it with the Marlins. Now, that to me is very impressive, to be under the age of 21, homer in 4 straight games, and it only be 3 people in Major League history.
It's just impressive what the Yankees are doing, and I know we've been highlighting the Yankees a lot. It's nothing to take away from the other teams in the league, but the Yankees are doing something that it feels special watching.
Mm-hmm.
And it just reminds you of, I know they've had some very dominant years in the past.
Yeah.
But it kind of reminds a little bit of that.
There are times I get memories of the 2009 season where it was almost you never count. In 2009, I know I forget how many walk-offs that season. That season was almost you never count them out.
No, and you definitely can't. It's nice to see. I mean, that's our local team up here too, especially with the Mets. Being the NL representatives for us as we tape from the 607. But take nothing away from Boston.
No.
They're still 2 games ahead of the Yanks as we talk. They're having a great season, albeit Hanley Ramirez getting sent down for assignment was...
Yeah, that was a little surprising.
That was very surprising, just because I know that he was such a corner piece of the Boston franchise going forward. To see that happen, I mean, it's interesting, but, this is not the first time this happened. I know Manny Ramirez had that happen to him a few years back.
Yep.
So we'll wait and see what happens, but definitely not writing Boston out by any means. And of course,
hey, shout out to Jackie Bradley Jr. If you haven't seen the highlight, go look it up. Pulling off his best Willie Mays impression in the game today. Holy cow.
Yeah, that highlight is circling the internet, so definitely go check that out.
And I know the Yankees lost today, of course, but when you run into the buzzsaw that is Justin Verlander, I can pitch at 100 miles an hour at 110 pitches.
Yes.
That's going to be hard to beat.
Houston is no slouch, and they definitely want to defend that crown. And I think if anybody thought... I mean, I know I originally thought that, they might have a little World Series hangover, but they are proving me wrong right now. And I'll be the first one to say it. They are proving me wrong. I mean, my pick to still get to the World Series was Anaheim, or the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, however you want to define the team.
Yeah.
But they're still in the hunt, too. I mean, no team is really running away with things. I mean,
no.
Cleveland's having a good run in the Central, but they're not running away with it by any means. And then you take a look at the NL. Holy cow, the East.
Yeah.
Atlanta's up, but only by a game on Philadelphia and Washington.
No, yeah, it's crazy. I know I was watching a sports radio broadcast the other day, and they were kind of talking about potential buyers and sellers because the trade deadline is approaching. You can't look at any division in baseball and go, they're going to be buyers, simply because, there is no team in the majors that is like totally out of it at this point. There's plenty of teams that can make a run and still get in it. I mean, the New York Mets are currently sitting in 4th place, but they're only 5 games back. And that's still in. It's May, almost June. That's still in it for baseball.
Unless your team is in double digits behind.
Right. If you're in double digits behind, that you're probably out of it. Like, I mean, we're looking at the NL Central. Milwaukee's in first place. Chicago's 4.5 games back. St. Louis and Pittsburgh are both. St. Louis is 5 games back. Pittsburgh is 6 games back. That's still in it. That's still a run. I mean, I remember the Colorado Rockies a couple of years ago when they went on a run and won like 22 straight in a row or something absurd like that.
It's one of the great things about baseball, especially, I will say this. The wild card edition has added so much extra interest to baseball, and I think it's such a smart move.
Well, and that's part of the reason you can't really count anybody out in terms of the trade market is because there is that second wild card spot that you all of a sudden have, half a dozen more teams that, hey, we're not out of it at the All-Star break.
No, and if you can get that invested in your team going late, that's so great for not only the management but for the fans because you need that. If your team is, we still got a shot. That mentality will carry you so far in the playoffs.
Also, because you get a team that hasn't been in the playoffs for a while and get a home game and get that franchise rocking. The one that comes to mind is Toronto a couple years ago when they were playing that wild card or LDS game against Texas. The Bautista walk off, the Bautista home run, and the bat flip, and the whole thing. watch that highlight. You can find it on YouTube if you just search Jose Bautista bat flip. That is the loudest I think I've ever heard a stadium in a playoff game.
No,
and I've seen my fair share of Yankees playoff games.
And that's just such pure emotion that it just resonates, and that can carry a team very far in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just one great thing about being involved in sports is if your team still has a shot to get in, that still is better than if your team is already gone and then you're on to the next sport. It's truly amazing to see. So I know as us for Yankee fans, it's great to see, but you know what? There's a lot of other teams that are doing better.
Yeah, and the Yankees definitely can't take anything for granted and go, hey, we're winning really well. We can coast.
Yeah,
Nope.
It's still a lot of parity in the league, and that's beautiful to see. For my rounding the bases this week, I'm going to follow up about the fight I mentioned from the UFC over in England. Stephen Thompson, Wonderboy, the number 1 ranked welterweight contender, taking on Darren Till, the number 8 ranked welterweight contender. Dare I say a lot of drama with this fight?
Just a little bit.
Anytime that somebody misses weight, it's always a dark cloud over a fight.
I'll say all of a sudden you're thinking more about that than who do I think is going to win this fight?
Yeah, and that's going to play a factor no matter how you want to spill it. And I know that when Till came to weigh-ins, he weighed 174 instead of the 170 requirement for welterweight.
Yep.
So when that happens, they had to rework the deal out. I believe he lost 30% of his purse.
Yep.
And he had to do a re-weigh-in, and he could not weigh over 188 the fight day morning.
Yeah, and he came in at 187.3.
So that plays a little bit of factor going in. So he's fighting in his hometown. And if you heard him come to the cage, coming out to Sweet Caroline by Neil Diamond, dare I say that crowd was 150% behind Till.
Yeah, they were supportive just a little bit.
That crowd was so loud singing. I mean, it was a great thing to see because I like seeing when the crowd is really behind fighters, no matter who they are, where they're fighting. If they're 100% all in and they're wild and they're making noise, it only adds to the drama of the fight. So when these two guys got in the cage for the fight, it definitely wasn't exactly as I thought. I thought Till's plan to win should have been the same way Shogun beat Machida the second time around. Just bull rush him.
Right.
And don't give Thompson any place to set up. Much like when Shogun did fight Machida, he just put the pressure on him and Machida never had time to set up because Machida's style is very similar to Thompson's. So with Thompson, there was no pressure on him for most of the fight. And I know that Thompson was throwing a lot more strikes, and it just really was one of those kind of situations that this fight didn't have a lot of highlights in it.
No.
I don't want to say it was boring because it wasn't. Because depends. If you really want to just see knockouts and quick submissions, this might not have been your fight. But if you're into the technical side, this was a very brilliant fight to watch because you had two guys at a very high level trying to land shots, and they weren't easy. Till, I thought, made the crucial mistake of not pressuring Wonderboy and backing him into the cage and pinning him. He should have gone for maybe some more clinches. Now, I know maybe he didn't want to do that because he wanted to beat him at his own game. Sure. Or he was worried that, okay, if he did clinch him, there's the weight issue. So he didn't even want to bring that into the foray.
Not at all.
And you know what? That's fine. I had no issue with that because I think if he did, let's say he did take him down and was doing a lot more grappling. Yeah, you could argue, oh, you came in overweight. You're already, twice the size. That was going to play a factor. But I think for Till, he wanted to make a knockout. He wanted to make a highlight reel for his hometown. Did he do it? No. But he did enough that in the judges' eyes, it went to decision, and the judges ruled it 49-46. Two of them did 48-47 in Till's favor. I really struggle with this. I really have an issue with this because, in my opinion, and as we were scoring this on our Twitter account, OD Parlay Hour, if you're not following, you should. I had this mapped out. Wonderboy won rounds 1 and 2 and 4. Till, in my opinion, did not do enough to win rounds 1 and 2. They were pretty much all Wonderboy.
Sure.
Round 3, he did enough late. He was landing shots. He finally looked like he finally got his groove in there. And he was landing a lot of leg kicks, which I believe if you look at the video, Wonderboy's right leg started turning dark purple.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty.
It wasn't pretty by any means. He was still in the fight, and he was still progressing forward, albeit, though, they were doing a lot more like high-fiving and smiling. And I'm not saying they weren't taking it serious, because they were.
Right.
But I just like to see when two fighters are trying to go for it, finish the fight, don't leave it in the hands of the judges because you never know what's going to happen. You hear the statement all the time in MMA. Don't ever leave it in the judges' hands because you don't know what they're going to see. You don't know how it's going to go. There's just so many X factors in that you just want to eliminate that as much as possible. Thompson was nailing shots, and I thought he was throwing more that were making damage. Albeit, though, Till was throwing more headshots that were connecting.
Mm-hmm.
Till looked like he had octagon control, but it's really, I guess it depends on your interpretation. What is your interpretation of octagon control, Pat?
Fighter clearly is winning the fight. He's imposing his will. He's doing what he wants to do, and the other fighter is having to adjust and counter to that.
That's a very good definition. If you're saying it, for me, it's if you're dominating your position in the entire fight, in the entire round, that you do not let your opponent get the chance to set up or defend. That's my interpretation of it. Thompson was able to move around. Thompson was not pressed up and pinned up against the cage where Till could just unload shots. He was a little bit in the third, at the end of the third round. He was. But in my opinion, it definitely wasn't there. And then once they got to the fourth round, Thompson was dodging and weaving. Till looked like he started to have a little gas issues there. Obviously, this is the first time I remember him being taken to deep waters in the fourth or fifth round because I don't think he's gone that far in the UFC.
No, I don't think so either.
So that being said, when he got in the fifth round, Till did have a knockdown. And he almost finished. He almost finished Waterboy.
Mm-hmm.
Thompson, though, did something very uncharacteristic, at least in my opinion, because I can't remember the last time I ever saw him do it. He threw a takedown.
Yeah.
And he landed it.
Yeah.
So, the fifth round, though, I thought Till did win. And I thought, yeah, you could award the third because rounds 1, 2, 3 were so razor close.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on what side you want to look at it.
Right.
But in my opinion, I thought Wonderboy did enough that he won. Obviously, the judges disagreed. And if you saw the reaction on the UFC post-fight with Jimmy Smith, Karen Bryant, Michael Chiesa, and Michael Bisping, watch that reaction. Because I think they were all in shock as much as I was. But, I mean, they did explain it, and, you should definitely watch their post-fight conferences after each fight, too, because you definitely learn a lot. But it all really depends on what you define as your octagon control and was still pressing the pace. I don't know. In my opinion, I don't think he did. I think he played it very safe, and I don't think he did anything to really get Wonderboy out of rhythm. A couple times he was against the cage, but he didn't do enough. But that is my interpretation. So, if I was scoring the fight, I'd probably score 48-47 Wonderboy and call it a day. But that's me. But that's not how it happens. So, obviously, where does Till go from here in the welterweight division?
That's the ultimate question.
There's a big fight coming on for the interim welterweight title between Dos Anjos and Covington June 9th that I think is going to clear up a lot of space. Tyrone Woodley, the current champion, is supposed to be coming back from surgery, I believe, in July, maybe August.
Relatively soon.
So obviously you think the winner of that is going to fight Woodley. Where does that leave everybody else? In my opinion, Till should fight the loser of that fight.
Yeah.
I think that's the one that makes the most sense to me. And then for Wonderboy, let's see how it pans out. I think there's a lot of different ways it could go. I think, though, he should probably get some time off and maybe re-examine what happened. And then kind of go from there because he's definitely in the top 5 of the division, no question of that. But who's there left for him to go that's going to be a reasonable fight if he's not going to be fighting Woodley? Or if Woodley's not ready to go, maybe put him against the champion. I know it kind of sounds, or against one of the Covington or Dos Anjos. I think it just depends on who you really think won that fight and who you think really lost that fight. Because I know what it says on the scoreboard, but if you don't think Wonderboy lost, you could definitely put him in the title shot.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, there's so many different ways to go with it. But I'm very interested to hear what you guys think of that fight, if you caught it. Hit us up on that hashtag ODPH, because we want to know. A lot of sports are going down this week. We definitely want that feedback. You hit us up on the Facebook, hit us up on the Instagram, hit us up on the Twitter. We want to talk to you about that. So, for the intern himself, Padawan J.
Thank you.
I'm your host, Kenem. Thank you, as always, for listening to the ODPH. We'll see you next time.